Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. I never thought I'd encounter an entitled parent in real life, let alone at my own property. But there I was, facing down an irate woman who seemed to think she was entitled to use my family's lakeside cottage for free. Little did she know, she was about to learn a harsh lesson about the consequences of assault. It was a beautiful Saturday morning in late June. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and a gentle breeze rustled through the trees surrounding our cozy lakeside cottage. I had driven up the night before to spend a relaxing weekend doing some maintenance and enjoying the peace and quiet. As I sipped my morning coffee on the back deck overlooking the sparkling blue water, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel coming from the front of the house. Curious, I set down my mug and walked around to see who it could be. We didn't get many visitors out here, especially this early. As I rounded the corner, I saw a shiny black SUV parked in the driveway. A woman who looked to be in her mid-40s was climbing out of the driver's seat. She had an expensive-looking haircut, designer sunglasses perched on her head, and was dressed like she'd just stepped out of a country club brochure. Behind her, two preteen girls emerged from the back seat, both glued to their phones. They looked bored and annoyed to be there. The woman marched purposefully toward me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning," she called out in an overly cheerful voice. "You must be the caretaker. I'm here to check in." I blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, what? Check in for what?" The woman's smile faltered slightly. "For our stay, of course. We booked this cottage for the week. We're the Smith family." I shook my head. "I think there must be some mistake. This cottage isn't for rent. It's my family's private property." The woman's eyes narrowed. "No, that can't be right. I specifically booked this cottage. 1422 Lakeview Drive, right? That's the address. But I can assure you it's not a rental property. We've owned it for generations and have never rented it out," I explained patiently. The woman's face was starting to turn red. "Well, clearly there's been a mix-up. We drove 3 hours to get here and I'm not leaving without a place to stay. Just give us the keys and we'll sort it out later." I stood my ground. "Ma'am, I understand you're frustrated, but I can't just give you the keys to my private property. There are no reservations or rentals here. I think you may have been scammed if you booked this place online somewhere." "How dare you accuse me of falling for a scam?" she shrieked. "I demand to speak to your manager right now." I had to bite back a laugh at the absurdity of the situation. "Ma'am, I don't have a manager. This is my family's private cottage. I'm not an employee or caretaker." The woman was practically shaking with rage at this point. Her two daughters had wandered over, looking embarrassed by their mother's behavior. "Mom, can we just go?" one of them whined. "This is so embarrassing." "No," the woman snapped. "We are not leaving until we get what we paid for." She turned back to me with fire in her eyes. "Listen here, you minimum wage flunky. I paid good money to rent this dump and I am not leaving without those keys. Now hand them over before I call the police." I held up my hands in a placating gesture. "Ma'am, please calm down. There's no need to make threats. I'm trying to explain that this property is not and has never been for rent. If you'd like, I can help you look up some nearby hotels or actual rental properties." "I don't want your help," she screeched. "I want this cottage that I paid for." She lunged forward and tried to grab the keys off my belt. I quickly stepped back out of her reach. "Ma'am, do not try to grab me or my property again," I said firmly. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave now before this situation escalates further." "Oh, it's going to escalate all right," she snarled. "Girls, start unloading the car. We're staying here whether this idiot likes it or not." I stepped in front of her as she tried to march past me toward the cottage. "Ma'am, you need to stop right now. You are trespassing on private property and I will not hesitate to call the authorities if you don't leave immediately." Her face contorted in rage. "How dare you stand in my way? Do you know who I am? My husband is a very important businessman and he will sue you into oblivion for this. Now move." Before I could react, she raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. The sound echoed in the quiet morning air. Her daughters gasped in shock. I stood there for a moment, my cheeks stinging. Then I slowly reached into my back pocket and pulled out my badge. "Ma'am, I'm placing you under arrest for assault," I said calmly. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The color drained from the woman's face as she realized her massive mistake. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water as she struggled to process what was happening. Wait, you're a cop?" she stammered. But I thought." "You thought wrong," I replied evenly as I pulled out my handcuffs. "Now please turn around and place your hands behind your back." "Mom, what did you do?" one of the daughters cried out in horror. The woman seemed to snap out of her daze. "No, you can't arrest me. It was just a little slap. I'm a respected member of the community." She tried to back away, but I quickly closed the distance and grasped her arm firmly. "Ma'am, do not resist arrest," I warned. "You've already committed assault. Don't make this worse for yourself." "Get your hands off me," she shrieked, trying to wrench her arm free. "Girls, call your father. Tell him to bring the lawyers." I managed to get one cuff around her wrist as she flailed and fought against me. "Ma'am, stop resisting or I will have to use force to restrain you." "Help! Police brutality!" she screamed at the top of her lungs. "I'm being assaulted." "Mom, stop it," one of the daughters pleaded. "You're the one who hit him. Just calm down." After a brief struggle, I was able to secure both of the woman's wrists behind her back. She continued yelling and making a scene as I recited her Miranda rights. "This is ridiculous. I demand to speak to your supervisor," she ranted. "Do you have any idea who I am? I'll have your badge for this, you minimum wage rent-a-cop." I ignored her tirade as I pulled out my phone to call for backup and transport. The two girls stood by looking mortified, unsure what to do. "Girls, I'm going to need you to stay here until another officer arrives to take your statements," I told them gently. "Is there someone you can call to come pick you up?" The older-looking of the two nodded. "Why yeah, our dad. Should we call him now?" "That would be a good idea," I confirmed. "Let him know your mother has been arrested and he needs to come get you." "Arrested?" the woman shrieked. "This is absurd. I want to speak to a real police officer, not some fake wannabe cop." I held up my badge again. "Ma'am, I assure you I am a real police officer. I'm off duty at the moment, but that doesn't change the fact that you committed assault. Now please be quiet while I call this in." She continued ranting and raving as I spoke to the dispatcher, requesting a patrol car for transport and taking statements. The girls had moved off to the side and were having a hushed conversation with their father on speakerphone. From the frustrated male voice I could hear, it seemed the husband was less than pleased with his wife's behavior. About 20 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Officer Johnson, a colleague I knew well, stepped out and surveyed the scene with raised eyebrows. "Quite a way to spend your day off, eh, Cooper?" he chuckled as he approached. I gave a rueful grin. "You know me, can't stay out of trouble. Thanks for coming out." "No problem. Want to fill me in?" Johnson asked. I quickly explained the situation while the woman, who had finally stopped yelling, glared daggers at me. Johnson shook his head in disbelief. "Some people, I swear," he muttered. He turned to address the still cuffed woman. "Ma'am, I'm going to transport you to the station for booking. Do you understand?" "This is completely unnecessary," she huffed. "It was just a little slap. Surely we can work this out without involving the courts." Johnson fixed her with a stern look. "Assault is assault, ma'am. Actions have consequences. Now, can you behave yourself or do I need to add resisting arrest to the charges?" The woman's shoulder slumped in defeat. "Fine," she muttered, "but I want it on record that I'm doing this under protest." "Duly noted," Johnson replied dryly as he escorted her to the patrol car. I turned to the two girls, who were watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. "Are you two going to be okay? Is your dad on his way?" The older girl nodded. "Yeah, he said he'd be here in about an hour. He's not happy." I gave them a sympathetic smile. "I'm sorry you got caught up in all this. I know it must be upsetting." "It's okay," the younger girl said quietly. "We're used to Mom acting crazy sometimes, but she's never hit anyone before." My heart went out to these poor kids. Clearly their mother had some serious entitlement and anger management issues. "Well, another officer will be by shortly to take your statements," I told them. "Just tell them exactly what you saw happen. And don't worry, this isn't your fault at all." They nodded solemnly. I could tell they were still processing the shocking turn of events. After giving my own statement to Johnson and making sure the girls would be okay until their father arrived, I was finally able to return to my interrupted morning coffee. As I settled back onto the deck, I shook my head in disbelief at how quickly a peaceful Saturday had turned into such chaos. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of my saga with the entitled Karen and her equally insufferable husband. Over the next few weeks, the incident at the cottage sparked a legal battle that tested my patience and faith in the justice system. Karen, whose real name I learned was Deborah Wilkins, and her husband Richard tried every trick in the book to get the charges dropped and avoid consequences for her actions. The day after the arrest, I received a call from the police chief asking me to come down to the station. When I arrived, I found him in a heated discussion with a sleazy-looking man in an expensive suit who I assumed was the Wilkins lawyer. "Ah, Cooper, there you are," the chief said when he saw me. "This is Mr. Goldstein, the Wilkins family attorney. He'd like to discuss the incident from yesterday." I nodded curtly at the lawyer, who was eyeing me with barely concealed disdain. "Officer Cooper," he began in an oily voice, "I think we can all agree that this unfortunate misunderstanding has gotten out of hand. My clients are willing to offer a generous settlement if you'll agree to drop the charges and forget this ever happened." I raised an eyebrow. "With all due respect, sir, there was no misunderstanding. Your client trespassed on private property and assaulted a police officer when asked to leave. Those are crimes, not misunderstandings." The lawyer's fake smile tightened. "Come now, surely we can be reasonable here. Mrs. Wilkins is a pillar of the community. She volunteers at church, donates to charity. Surely you wouldn't want to tarnish her good name over such a trivial matter?" "Trivial?" I repeated incredulously. She hit me across the face. In front of her own children, no less. I fail to see how that's trivial. "A momentary lapse in judgment," the lawyer said smoothly. "She was understandably upset about the rental mix-up. I'm sure you can empathize with acting rashly in a moment of frustration." I crossed my arms. "No, actually, I can't empathize with assaulting someone for doing their job. The charges stand." The lawyer's demeanor instantly changed. The fake friendliness vanished, replaced by cold anger. "You're making a big mistake," he growled. "The Wilkins are not people you want as enemies. We can make your life very difficult if you insist on pursuing this vendetta." I met his gaze steadily. "Is that a threat, Mr. Goldstein? Because that sounds an awful lot like attempting to intimidate a police officer, which I'm sure you know is also a crime." The lawyer blanched slightly. "And no, of course not. Just a friendly warning about the, potential consequences of your actions." I replied skeptically. "Well, consider me warned. Now if you'll excuse me, I have actual police work to attend to." As I turned to leave, the lawyer called out desperately, "What if we doubled the settlement offer? Surely every man has his price." I paused in the doorway and looked back at him. "You're right, Mr. Goldstein. I do have a price." I pointed to the badge on my chest. "And I already paid it when I swore an oath to uphold the law. Good day, gentlemen." I walked out, leaving the flustered lawyer sputtering behind me. The chief followed me into the hallway. "You okay, Cooper?" he asked quietly. "I know these fat cat lawyer types can be intimidating." I snorted. "Please, I've faced down armed suspects. Some ambulance chaser in an overpriced suit doesn't scare me." The chief chuckled and clapped me on the shoulder. "That's what I like to hear. You did good in there. Don't let them bully you into backing down." I nodded gratefully. "Thanks, Chief. I appreciate the support." Little did I know, that was only the first salvo in what would become an increasingly nasty legal and PR battle. Over the next few days, I started noticing whispered conversations stopping when I entered rooms at the station. Colleagues who were usually friendly became oddly distant. I chalked it up to the awkwardness of the situation at first, but soon realized something more was going on. It all came to a head about a week after the incident when I was called into the chief's office again. This time, he looked grave and uncomfortable. "Cooper, we need to talk," he began hesitantly. "Some concerning allegations have come to light about your conduct during Mrs. Wilkins' arrest." I furrowed my brow in confusion. "What allegations?" I followed procedure to the letter. The chief sighed heavily. "I know, and I believe you. But Mrs. Wilkins is claiming you used excessive force and made inappropriate comments of a sexual nature during the arrest." I felt my jaw drop. "What? That's completely false. You can't possibly believe that." "I don't," the chief assured me. "But the Wilkins have some powerful connections. They're pushing for an official investigation into your conduct." I shook my head in disbelief. "This is insane. What about the daughters? They witnessed the whole thing. Surely they'll back up my side of the story." The chief grimaced. "That's the thing. The girls are now saying they were too upset to clearly remember what happened. They can't corroborate either version of events." My mind reeled as I processed this information. Clearly the Wilkins had gotten to their daughters and pressured them into changing their story. The depths these people would sink to avoid consequences was staggering. "So what happens now?" I asked, trying to keep the anger out of my voice. "For now, you'll be on paid administrative leave while Internal Affairs conducts their investigation," the chief explained apologetically. "I'm sorry, Cooper. I know this isn't fair, but we have to follow protocol." I nodded numbly, still struggling to believe this was happening. As I left the station that day, I felt a mix of rage and helplessness. How could telling the truth and doing my job have led to this nightmare? But I was determined not to let the Wilkins win. I knew the truth was on my side, and I would fight to clear my name no matter what it took. Over the next few weeks, the Wilkins stepped up their smear campaign against me. Suddenly local news stations were running stories about the rogue cop accused of misconduct. Opinion pieces appeared in the newspaper questioning whether I was fit to serve. Someone even spray-painted, pig across my front door one night. Through it all, I tried to keep my head high and trust that the truth would come out. My fellow officers and the chief continued to support me behind the scenes, but publicly they had to maintain neutrality during the investigation. The whole ordeal was taking a toll on my mental health. I had trouble sleeping, constantly replaying the incident and second-guessing my actions. Even though I knew I'd done nothing wrong, the stress of having my integrity questioned was overwhelming at times. Just when I was starting to lose hope, an unexpected ally emerged. One afternoon, I received a call from a blocked number. When I answered, a young female voice spoke hesitantly. Officer Cooper? This is Megan Wilkins, Deborah's daughter?" I sat up straighter, instantly on alert. "Yes, this is Officer Cooper. What can I do for you, Megan?" There was a pause. Then she continued in a rush. "I can't take it anymore. The lies, the pressure to change our story. It's not right. I want to tell the truth about what really happened that day." My heart leapt. This could be the break I needed to clear my name. But I had to tread carefully. "I appreciate that, Megan, but you should know that coming forward could have serious consequences. Are you sure this is what you want to do?" I asked gently. "I'm sure," she replied, her voice stronger now. "Mom and Dad have gone too far this time. I can't stand by and let an innocent person's life be ruined just to protect them." We arranged to meet discreetly at a cafe across town. When Megan arrived, I could see the strain of the past weeks etched on her young face, but there was also determination in her eyes. Over the next hour, she poured out the whole sordid tale. How her parents had pressured her and her sister to forget key details of the incident. How they'd promised lavish rewards if the girls stuck to the new story. How her mother had laughed about teaching that arrogant cop a lesson. "I have proof, too," Megan said, sliding her phone across the table. "Mom doesn't know I recorded some of our conversations about it." I listened to snippets of the recordings with growing amazement. There was Deborah Wilkins, in her own words, admitting to making false allegations and conspiring to obstruct justice. "Megan, this is incredible," I said when she finished. "But are you absolutely certain you want to go through with this? Your parents won't take it well." She nodded firmly. "I'm sure. What they're doing is wrong. And honestly, I'm tired of living with their toxic behavior. This isn't the first time they've pulled stunts like this. It's just the first time I've had the courage to stand up to them." I reached out and squeezed her hand. "You're very brave, Megan. I know this can't be easy, but you're doing the right thing." With Megan's testimony and evidence in hand, the tide quickly turned. The internal investigation cleared me of any wrongdoing. The district attorney filed additional charges against Deborah Wilkins for filing false reports and witness tampering. Richard Wilkins and their lawyer were also charged as co-conspirators. The media narrative shifted overnight. Now the story was about the brave teenager who stood up to her entitled parents to protect an innocent officer. Megan received an outpouring of support for her courageous actions. As for the Wilkins, their carefully crafted public image crumbled. Deborah was sentenced to 18 months in prison for the assault and subsequent crimes. Richard got 12 months for his role in the cover-up attempt. Their lawyer was disbarred. In the end, justice prevailed, but the experience left me with a newfound appreciation for how fragile the truth can be in the face of wealth and influence. I also gained a deep respect for Megan's moral courage in standing up for what's right, even at great personal cost. The whole ordeal changed me as a police officer and as a person. I became even more committed to serving with integrity and standing up for those without power or influence, and I never again underestimated the depths to which some people will sink to avoid facing consequences for their actions. As for my little lakeside cottage, it remains a peaceful retreat, though I did install security cameras, just in case any other entitled visitors get any ideas. Sometimes when I'm relaxing on the deck, I think back to that fateful morning and marvel at how one entitled woman's temper tantrum spiraled into such a life-changing saga. But mostly, I'm grateful. Grateful that the truth came to light. Grateful for colleagues and community members who stood by me. And especially grateful for one brave young woman who chose to do the right thing, even when it was hard. In the end, Karen's attempt to bully her way into a free vacation not only failed spectacularly, but exposed the ugliness lurking beneath her polished facade. And while I wouldn't wish to relive those difficult weeks, I emerged from the experience stronger, wiser, and more committed than ever to my oath to protect and serve. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.